But we're going to begin tonight with the bank that doesn't seem to be able to get out of its own way, right? Deutsche Bank has been in the news because of its ties to the Trump family business, where it lost billions of dollars on bad loans that it just kept handing out to Mr. Trump. And now, they're never going to be able to collect that money. It's gone. It also reached a $7.2 billion settlement with the U.S. Justice Department in January 2017 for allegedly mishandling investors in the sale of mortgage-backed securities in the lead-up to the financial meltdown. These headlines and others in the last several years, they remain a public embarrassment. But now, Deutsche Bank is in the news again with even more serious financial troubles. It is firing 18,000 workers over the next 3 years. In fact, many were told to get their stuff and to leave today. What gives? Deutsche Bank says it's simply restructuring its business model. But is it? Joining us now is Professor Richard Wolff, who is a noted economics professor at UMass Amherst, and who's also followed, by the way, by hundreds of thousands of people worldwide. All right, let's talk about this thing with Deutsche Bank. What I'm hearing and reading today from experts is, don't worry about it. All they're doing is restructuring, maybe changing their model somewhat. Not that big a deal. What do you say?
I say that you shouldn't believe such stories. It may be true. That's the whole point. It may be, but it may not be. And that's the terrible condition we're in. To listen to them, the people that, the so-called experts. Let me just remind you, in the months leading up to the collapse of Lehman Brothers back in 2008, the kind of opening gun, together with the collapse of Bear Stearns, that brought us the global capitalist collapse. It would be easy to find statements by experts, by bank CEOs, by Wall Street commentators telling us not to worry, it's a detail, it only affects one bank. None of that is normally true. Deutsche Bank is the biggest bank in Germany. It is one of the biggest banks in Europe and the world. If it has serious troubles, those troubles are also affecting other banks, and they're affecting the interactions between a monster bank like Deutsche and all the other banks, since these banks do enormous amount of business with one another. The truth of it is, the people who run these banks hide their difficulties from the shareholders because they want to keep their jobs, from the political authorities because they want to keep the people from looking too closely, their workers because they don't want to freak people out that their jobs might be in danger. So what we're left with is very little. Lots of PR and a big question mark, because clearly that bank is in serious trouble, but we won't know the extent of it until they're good and ready or something blows, and then the whole game is up.
Yeah, see, that's what I'm thinking as well. When it gets to the point where you have to fire 18,000 people, how can you not be having some kind of difficulty, right? Especially when, let me add this caveat, by the way. As far as I know, and I'm not an expert like you are, but as far as I can tell, of all the industries in the world today, the one that gets the most favorable deals seem to me to be the banks. So they get the most favorable deals, and they're still firing 18,000 people. Explain that.
Well, here's two things. One, more than in the United States, although we have it here too, Europe has a problem. The mass of people are very angry at banks. They bailed them all out in 2008 and 9. It is politically impossible for leaders today to do again for those kinds of banks what was done before. It is politically suicidal for political leaders to risk doing that. So they can't give away the whole farm to help these banks this time the way they could, because it's too recently in the past. So I think that's why Deutsche, which no doubt tried to get another bailout, was told, well, either we're not going to give it to you, or you have to do some very big steps to make it look like we ought to do it again. Firing 18,000 people is that kind of act. But you're right, Rick. It's very dangerous. Here's how people have to understand it. This is going to be done, they say, over a period of time.
3 years, yeah.
Yeah. Now imagine you're a mid-level executive in a Deutsche Bank, say on Wall Street. You're wondering to yourself, am I on the list? Am I going to get it? And guess what? Those people are starting to look for another job last night. And they're not going to stay. They're not going to risk this unknown slaughter of their... So the bank knows that. They all know that. They have literally told their people, we're in such difficulty that you better look out for yourself, because we don't know where this is going to end, and we don't know where you fit. And even if we do know, we're not going to tell you.
Richard Wolff, as usual. Thank you, Professor, for taking us through this, and we'll be watching it. Thanks so much.
Okay, you're very welcome.